Hello, I'm Raj Chengappa and your host for Nothing But the Truth. Every week, we will deal with issues of key concern and bring you perspectives and clarity as to why these matter to you and the one clear truth that emerges from it. In this episode, we would look at the phenomenon of political defection and splitting of parties, with the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party playing a major role in this in terms of capturing power and also destabilizing governments. Though the Congress has also done so, it is the BJP that has been in the forefront in recent months. We would also look at how damaging this could be for democracy. So let's begin with some hard statistics. The Ashoka University in a recent study showed that the BJP gave as many as 833 tickets to defectors. And the strike record was very good. 44% of them won. The Congress too has attracted defectors and has given tickets in the past decade to around 517 of them, and only 20% of them were elected, much lower than the BJP average. Regional parties too have indulged in this, but it is certainly the BJP that is leading the charge. If you put these on a scale, you would find that the Congress has bled the most by defections and the BJP has gained the most. As a matter of fact, after the BJP came to power at the center in 2014, its expansion has been truly awesome. If you look currently at the number of states it rules, it has 17 states either ruled by it or have allied with other parties to rule them out of the 28 states that we have. And in the Modi cabinet, at the center, almost 16 members of his cabinet are defectors from other parties. There are 5 major techniques that the party uses to win over defectors and capture power in various forms. The first major technique that could be discerned, which the BJP uses to win defectors, could be called the break and make technique. Nothing symbolizes this more than what is happening currently in Maharashtra. If you recall, the Shiv Sena till recently, along with the Congress and the Nationalist Congress Party, had formed a coalition government called the Maharashtra Vikas Aghadi. But in a sudden turn of developments, there was a rebellion within the Shiv Sena that many saw as being engineered by the BJP, and a sizable chunk of the Shiv Sena MLAs, almost 40 out of the 56 MLAs, moved towards a rebel group headed by Eknath Shinde. That group successfully toppled the MVA and joined with the BJP, and now Eknath Shinde is the chief minister in a coalition government between the Shiv Sena rebel factors and the BJP. But the endgame for the BJP in Maharashtra, though not evident now, is that finally they hope that the Eknath Shinde camp of the Shiv Sena would merge into the BJP so that they have no rival powers when they go to the polls, particularly the Assembly and Lok Sabha polls that are due in 2024. The second technique that the BJP uses to win over defectors could be called join and shine. And Madhya Pradesh is a very good example of that technique. In 2018, the Congress stormed to power in Madhya Pradesh, overturning decades of BJP rule. Then the BJP worked towards destabilizing the Congress. It found in Jyotiraditya Scindia, a very prominent young Congress leader, the perfect foil for it. Scindia was upset that Kamal Nath, the then Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh, and Digvijay Singh, another former Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh, both heavyweights from that state, were sidelining him. Things came to a pass when Scindia was denied a Rajya Sabha ticket in March 2020. He then joined the BJP, and along with him, 22 other Congress MLAs defected. And the Nath government, the Kamal Nath government, was forced to fall. The BJP then combined with these 22 MLAs and formed a government there with Shivraj Singh Chauhan returning as Chief Minister. Jyotiraditya Scindia was rewarded by not only getting a Rajya Sabha seat, but also being made a Union Cabinet Minister. He's currently the Cabinet Minister for Civil Aviation as well as Steel. And interestingly, 19 of the 22 MLAs that defected because they had been disqualified were re-elected in by-polls after that. The BJP has repeated these grand strikes, if you look across the country, first in Karnataka and then in Goa and in other states as well. The third major tactic that the BJP adopts could be called the wholesale model. In this, the party engineers so many defections that they almost take the entire party, the opposition, to their side. A classic example of this was in 2017, when in Arunachal Pradesh, as many as 33 Congress MLAs of a house of 60 defected and joined the BJP, and the BJP came to power through that means. The fourth major model that the BJP adopts could be called the Terminator. In this, the BJP takes a very prominent leader of the opposition, wins him or her over, and then proceeds to use him or her to destroy that particular party that the person belonged to. In Assam, we saw what happened. It was Himanta Biswa Sharma, a very prominent Congress leader who felt slighted by the way the Congress was treating him. He had ambitions of taking the top post, but found any effort that he made was being thwarted by the Congress High Command as well as the local state leaders. So, in 2015, just a year before the assembly elections, he defected to the BJP and then worked with the BJP to defeat the Congress soundly in Assam. He may have been disappointed that he did not get the Chief Minister's post, but the BJP told him that he should go and start working his magic in the other northeastern states. And that he did with great aplomb. We talked of Arunachal Pradesh, that fell, as did several other northeastern states, largely engineered by Himanta Biswa Sharma. And in the elections held last year, Sharma ensured that the BJP won handsomely again, and for that, he was rewarded as the Chief Minister, and the Congress was decimated. Sonowal was shifted as the Union Minister, and now Sharma has emerged as one of the most prominent leaders of the BJP. What a fall for the Congress that had slighted him. As a matter of fact, the BJP now has 5 chief ministers who are defectors from other parties. 4 of them are from the Congress. One, as I had mentioned earlier, is Himanta Biswa Sharma of Assam. The second is Pema Khandu of Arunachal Pradesh. The third, Biren Singh of Manipur. The fourth, Manik Saha of Tripura. And in Karnataka, we have Baswaraj Bommai, joined the BJP in 2008. A fifth model that the BJP employs could be called the social engineering one. In this, what the BJP does is, because it may not have representation from certain sections of society or caste groups or communities, they then try and win over the leaders of those communities and bring them into the fold along with their followers. If you take a look at Uttar Pradesh, this model has worked very well. As many as 12 of the members of the Yogi Adityanath cabinet in Uttar Pradesh come from other parties. And one of the most prominent of them is the Deputy Chief Minister, Mr. Brajesh Pathak, who at one time was a mentor to Mayawati, who had ruled the state earlier. He is a prominent Brahmin, and he adds a whole lot of weight when the BJP went to polls recently. While most political parties, and particularly the Congress, seems helpless against the onslaught of the BJP, there is one party that has stood up and one leader that has stood against the BJP, and that is Mamta Banerjee. She, in fact, has paid the BJP back in kind. That was evident in the West Bengal Assembly elections that was held last year. First, the BJP struck. It won over 2 of her key lieutenants, Mukul Roy and Suvendu Adhikari, and they joined the BJP. That didn't make a difference to Mamta Banerjee's chances in the elections. she won comfortably. And then Mamta Banerjee struck right back. She got Mukul Roy to rejoin the TMC and, in a stunning move, got Babul Supriyo, a former union minister, to defect to her party. And he stood recently and has been elected to the Legislative Assembly on a TMC ticket. She followed it up with getting Shatrughan Sinha, the renegade BJP leader, to contest for the Lok Sabha bypolls under the TMC banner, and he won that as well. Given that the BJP has wooed such a large number of defectors, the opposition now accuses them of having an organized defection game and using all resources and means possible to win over defectors. They accuse them of not only rewarding the defectors, either monetarily or through ministerial post, but also forcing those who are reluctant by putting the central agencies like the CBI and the Enforcement Directorate on them, putting cases on them so that they will then finally yield. The BJP dismisses such allegations as untrue. When I met the BJP president, JP Nadda, along with a colleague, he said that the BJP has a cautious and conscious attitude towards welcoming people from other parties. And the reason he says conscious is that it is not a random selection that they make, that they look at the needs of the party, which sections are being neglected, and then they make a search for a leader that has stature and that they can bring followers. But it is a cautious effort because they study that leader or his followers and ensure that they fit within the BJP philosophy and can be assimilated rather than be outsiders. The BJP president also told us that getting people from other parties fits well with their new mantra, which is Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas, and Sabka Prayas. He says this is not an empty slogan and they believe in it. The BJP president also pointed out that the people that join their party are truly unhappy with the parties that they were with. And as he said, you cannot get a horse to come and drink water unless it wanted to do so. Mr. Nadda went on to tell us that the way those from other parties are integrated into the party is very systematic. Firstly, they are not made to feel as outsiders. Secondly, there is a lot of communication going on between him and those leaders that join to ensure that if there are any concerns that they have been met. Thirdly, they become involved in all the key activities of the BJP and they gradually assimilate into the party. Of course, many of the defectors that join the BJP say that they are very comfortable with the welfare model that Mr. Modi has brought ever since he's Prime Minister and do not seem to talk too much about the Hindutva philosophy in the first instance. BJP leaders do admit that many times the old-timers who are with the party feel somewhat disillusioned by newcomers coming and taking top posts. But as one of the leaders said, we tell them they should have a large heart and allow them to come so that the party could expand, which is what they really want to do. Of course, integration of defectors is not an easy process. Take the example of Madhya Pradesh, where the BJP came to power after toppling Kamal Nath. It took Shivraj Singh Chauhan, their chief minister, almost 40 days to decide on his cabinet, and that was largely because there was a battle between the defectors and the older party men as to who should get the post, and it took a while to sort out. Let's be clear that defections is not the prerogative of the BJP and didn't start with them. In fact, defections have been happening right for the past 50 years, and the Congress used to specialize in it. So much so that in 1985, given the kind of defections that were happening, the Parliament moved a law called the Anti-Defection Law, which barred individuals and disqualified them if they defected to another party. But there was an exception made. If 2/3 of the members of a party split, they could then merge with another party without being disqualified. And this is what the effort seems to be in various other states. Maharashtra could be an example. If the Shiv Sena the rebel Shiv Sena is not able to prove that it is the original Sena. Defections is both morally and ethically unhealthy for democracy. It in fact negates the mandate given to these representatives of ours and creates instability. It encourages corruption because these defectors are always looking for rewards, and it sullies the entire democratic system. The sooner we came down heavily on them and ensured that these petered to almost being non-existent, the better for Indian democracy. Also, the key test of a defector is, as long as power is there, there is a glue. And once the party loses power, many of them defect and go elsewhere. And that will be the true test for the BJP, because it has the largest number that at the moment, and though it is making phenomenal strides in terms of its expansion all across the country, one of the dangers of that is that tomorrow, if there is some problems, if there are reverses, they could see their party decline as the Congress did. Thank you for watching this episode of Nothing But the Truth. I look forward to having you with me again next week.